All right, what is up, everybody? I am Blue Toshi, and this is Blue Node, where we explore Bitcoin culture, art, ordinals, the market, everything. With me today is Brett Herskope, head of growth at Gamma, but also just a fascinating story and someone who's been in this space since the beginning. Brett, welcome to the show, dude.
Yeah, Blue, thanks for having me, man. It's a real pleasure to be here. You know, we've had a little bit to do with each other. I loved your chat and your panel at Vegas. Obviously, I know you quite well through Steven, and I love your show. And, it's always fun to go on a show that you enjoy watching. So pleasure to be here, my man.
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, after you and I were talking before the show, after Vegas, I just... and everything goes in cycles, but I hit an absolute brick wall. The kids got out of school. It was summer, and it kind of got warm late here in the northern states. And I just in June, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to take June off. In Bitcoin, I've been in it since 2015, but I would always probably like so many of us, I would ingest so much information from Andreas Antonopoulos and Trace Mayer and all these thinkers to learn more and more about it. But even then, every once in a while, before we had these awesome ecosystems like Ordinals and the whole art scene that we have now, where we can really glom together and glue together and all be even more sticky and friendly, I would take 3 or 4 month breaks and just focus on something entirely different. And it was totally healthy and I loved it. I don't know. How have you been feeling after? I mean, you absolutely killed it in Vegas. I mean, you were working, obviously. I know it's a fun trip, but you're traveling literally halfway across the world to MC what I thought was a great event at Inscribing Atlantis. But how have you been since then, and what was your experience?
Yeah, well, like you said, it's a long flight. So you jump on the plane in Melbourne, you fly across the Pacific, you look at they show you the map. It's just lots of blue, and you fly over these little tiny Pacific islands, and you finally land in LA or San Fran. It was LA this time, and then made the next short flight to Vegas. So you're pretty wired. Your brain's a little bit all over the place. I was super tired getting home, but it was really exciting to get over there. Obviously living in Australia or living in Melbourne, we have quite a few Ordinals people here. There's sort of
really?
some quiet Australians. Yeah, yeah. Like Sanj, caught up for coffee with him the other
Cool.
day from Emojis.
Yeah.
King from, if you know King, who's releasing the Atomic Bitcoin Butt Flowers, and she was Royals and did art for the people and has experimented heavily. And Nate Hill, there's a few other partner artists. So it's super cool here. There's a bit of a scene, but it's always great to get over to those events. And like you said, hats off to, Inscribing and Ultra, and obviously us at Gamma.
Yeah.
That event was awesome. I loved your panel. Like I said, I thought that your energy was, it was palpable. But yeah, I had a ball emceeing it. I don't hate the mic, that's for sure. But yeah, it's exhausting, man. Vegas, like Nashville felt less exhausting than Vegas, just because Vegas is an exhausting place.
It is.
That's a special place, I guess, in some ways. So,
and I know foreigners who come to the U.S., the United States is already this overwhelming culture of consumerism and be handsome and pretty and perfect teeth. I know Europeans, I hang out with the Vivid guys, and they're like, oh my God, it's so much. But then you go to Vegas and they're like, is this what America's like? You're like, no, this is what Vegas is like. It's just America. It's America on steroids, and, no, but you absolutely killed that the MC. And that's just that's 7 or 8 hours, and things got a little delayed, and the whole other room with the silent headphones, what a cool concept. But this was probably the most fun one. That space was the best, but I can't even imagine I was panel 4 of 6 or 7, and I knew cause I'm a big curler, that kooky Scottish Canadian sport. And I was like, I knew it was a late panel, and I'm like, Aaron, is it cool if I get in curling, we get bagpipers if you make it to the finals, and they pipe you on the ice and you're banging your broom, and it's kind of like you're about to go to war, and so I brought the bagpiper, and it was super fun to bring something from another passion and culture of mine into Ordinals. And I remember you were like, well, I guess we don't need to introduce this. Let's fucking go. So it was super fun to do, and I'm glad I got to do it. But you did not even we didn't get to speak for even a moment because you were swamped. Steven had me running around doing interviews with him the whole time, which was super fun. But I like to just chill sometimes too. But we're there to work, but work is a very loose term, right?
Yeah, I agree. Look, yeah, for sure. And it's great, go catch up with the team and get stuff done. But yeah, you guys were super busy at the actual BTC conference as well, and that was fun. That was sort of like the most art and most Bitcoin art that I've seen at a conference. And it's great to see BTC Mag like really embracing it, and obviously like giving you
Yeah.
guys a space to interview people. So hats off on that to you, and shout out Stephen Miller as well.
Yeah, Steven's a legend. But you know what I did notice, just going to the main BTC conference, obviously it's such a different crowd and we're a microcosm of that, but we're a growing microcosm there. Like Dennis is just killing it over there in that space, that art space, both digital and the physical Bitcoin art is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I got to say, obviously you and I are steeped in ordinals and our little bubble culture where, I think there's about 118 of us left right now, but you know what? They'll be back. But it
Yeah.
was really cool to see all the physical artists. And I'm like, I want that. That copper cool, like miner guy. Like I wanted like everything there. And it made me realize like, the art isn't just within ordinals and, even counterparty or whatever. It's not even in
Yeah.
just the on-chain eternal ecosystem. There are some IRL artists making really cool physicals that I would absolutely hang on my wall.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that dates right back as well. Like there was some really early, let's call them physical artists, for lack of a better expression right now, creating Bitcoin art right back early, probably like early. I'd have to look up the exact facts, but probably earlier than Counterparty even existed, and then it kind of like bled into that. So
Yeah.
there's been this undercurrent of art and culture, and it's been fun to see culture bring people to Bitcoin as well. I think I got into Bitcoin in 2017. I wish I got into it in 2015 when my buddy tried to convince me. I still remember, I vividly remember. We joke about it still because he's my sort of main buddy I still, call up when Bitcoin is doing its thing and say, how you going? And he's just a good friend of mine anyway. We were sitting at this bar in Melbourne and he was telling me about Bitcoin and I was retorting all the things that people say to you now where you're like, no, no, like, oh, but it's not real. Oh, you can't hold it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's just fake internet money back in 2015. And then it got to 2017. I was like, hold on a second. Maybe I should get into this. And then, it's been the rabbit hole ever since.
Yeah.
But yeah, so funny. So it was a while ago. It wasn't early, but it was a while ago
No,
now.
that was 8 years ago. Like it's funny because 17, obviously we both know was one of the peaks, right? It was 17. I think it was 20,
Big run up.
21. And then those are the two big ones I remember. But most people come in at the peak because they can't ignore it anymore. But only few people from the peaks stay, which I think is huge. I got super lucky. My brother, who's actually, I'm pretty old for this space, but he's way older than me. He was just like, hey, I heard Joe Rogan, or maybe it was Morgan Spurlock, the guy who did the Super Size Me. It was one of these, it was back in like late 2014 or something. He's like, hey, watch this video and let's each buy just a little Bitcoin. And then at the next family birthday party, you send me $5 of Bitcoin and then I'll send it to you and we'll just play with it. I'm like, sounds like a plan. So he's my big brother. So I went and did it and he didn't do it. Well, Bitcoin went from 250 to like $700 in that like 4-month window. And he's like, oh, I missed it. And I was like, and I had obviously spent 6 months or however long, like just going deep down the rabbit hole. I'm like, you know what? I don't think this is going away. Just buy it now. And he did. And, he had to put a little more up to get what he wanted, but obviously he's happy now, but everybody has to go through that. Like, what? This is the dumbest thing ever. And stress test the hell out of it, because even the name Bitcoin, we take it for granted now, but it's kind of when you first hear it, you're like, it sounds so like kitten coin. It sounds so stupid. And until you understand that, like, no, the money's there. You just hold the secret private key to move everything that's up there. What do you mean? And it's not in my wallet. What do you mean? It's like not here. It's like, what's this hardware wallet? It's like, well, that's an easier way to hold your private key, but you can just have papers. Like, it's just, there's so many onions to go through, and there's more. Like, I haven't even gone down them all, and I'm sure you haven't either. There's so many rabbit holes.
It's so like that. You think, you and I obviously are somewhat experienced, but we're so inexperienced compared to so many others as well.
Right.
There's always somebody who's better with their security or who knows a little bit more and who can explain a concept that you can't. I love that, like, I come from an education background, so I really love that learning journey. I think that was what was part of it. But yeah, it's funny because, I've got friends, that they don't need to be named, who, dabbled on the Silk Road doing whatever they wanted to do in 2012. And they're thinking, oh man, I spent so much Bitcoin then, hopefully those nights out were worth it. But, and they're still Bitcoiners. And, there's so many, there's just like a spectrum of Bitcoiners. And I think that's what I love because, as Ordinals people, even though we're Bitcoiners first, or, even Bitcoin first people first, we're sort of like not, we're somewhere on the spectrum of people who hold Bitcoin and what they think about Bitcoin, or how much they even care to read it.
And maxis don't realize that we're just as Bitcoiner or probably more than them. Like when I was in Nashville, we're having coffee. I think I was meeting Steven and Scribe, and there was these guys who had been Bitcoin for a couple of years, and they were getting their coffee, and we had a conversation with them. And then when they found out we were in Ordinals, they're like, oh, that's like that scammy stuff. And then they tried to start explaining Bitcoin to us. And then we were basically just use jujitsu. We're like, dude, we know probably infinitely more than you. And it's not a pissing match, but it's just no, people don't realize the more you're into Ordinals, you're probably a very fundamental Bitcoin person because it's a part of the whole stack of what made you believe in putting art and information on the immutable chain,
Yeah, I agree. Funny story on that one. So we went away for a big family trip over Easter, with my grandma who, late 80s, and she can still travel, still super fit. And, you don't get many opportunities to kind of do that. And we bumped into a family overseas who I actually went to primary school with. So it's really took me back. Hadn't seen them for that long, That's a long time ago now. And so I was chatting with, he's now a dad as well. He's got kids. He was there with his kids. And it turned out, I hadn't seen him for years, had no idea what he'd been up to. Turned out that he was a Bitcoiner. And he, when I explained to him, so we obviously got chatting, he was fascinated that I worked in the space and, you've got that connection. Not a lot of people even necessarily bring up that they're a Bitcoiner because some people just roll their eyes or don't want to talk to you.
You know what?
They're not,
or they're not ready. They're not ready to hear
exactly.
You're on level 86 of the video game. And they're like, how do I check my inventory? You're like, dude, call me in 6 years.
Yeah. And it was funny. So he was obviously aware of NFTs or what that was sort of I guess meant, or, what he thought that kind of meant or represented. But then when I explained to him, because he obviously understands how Bitcoin works, he understands nodes, he understands where the data's kept and transactions and whatnot. Actually, in saying that, obviously, not everyone even necessarily understands that, but he did. So when I explained to him about how the data was stored directly on Bitcoin, and he was a pretty what he thought was a Bitcoiner, he was like, oh, actually, that's really cool. So
so he got it. You got through to him.
He got it. Yeah, which I thought was awesome.
That's
it was just cool to hear someone that initially thought the whole kind of, let's call it NFT scene was a scam. So yeah, it's fun. I think, like you said, and even that's whether or not someone's ready or not to see it. Yeah.
But even
and you saw recently, if you're,
even coming into Bitcoin though, I used to, obviously in my town, probably just like you were in 2017, 2018, 2019, whenever there's a peak, they're like, hey, talk to Randall. Talk to Blue. He's a Bitcoin guy, and you become that guy. But now I'm I feel bad in this last cycle because now it's big institutions, it's family businesses, it's hedge funds, it's sovereigns, it's states, it's countries, like, but it's not our retail buddies. Like they got totally spooked away, whatever that was in 21. And, you know, I feel bad for them, but I'm also at a point, and I'm sure you are too, where I'm not going to go out of my way. Like, I've got my normie friends and they know I'm the Bitcoin guy or in the ordinals and art, but that they don't even remotely get. And if they want to come ask questions, I will happily give them advice. But I generally just end up saying, you know what, like dollar cost average in, just put a little in and then just like understand a little, do some research and then come back to me. Cause the next one is obviously like, okay, get it off Coinbase, like get a hardware wallet, just put it on a hardware wallet. Like, okay, now make sure you got the code written down. Like, so it's just taking these baby steps cause you can't, you know, go into your half-hour spiel cause they're like, whoa, I don't get it, you know?
Yeah, no, look, that's again, there's just so many parallels from when I was a teacher in terms of when you teach a new concept to someone, you
Oh,
can't just load everything on. You
yeah.
know, it's like I used to explain to the kids when I taught them that, let's just say like learning maths, for example, it's like building a house. You've got to like lay the first brick, learn that brick, and then lay the next brick and, you know, build the wall up first. And when I say, you know, build the wall, you know, build the frame of the house or whatever. So, you know, it's that's just that never changes. You know, the way that people learn, it never changes, and people learn at their like stage of readiness. You know, it's like maybe one of the students or maybe your buddy was like, all right, well, I'm already at like the sixth brick. I'm ready to lay the seventh brick, you know,
Right.
whereas another buddy might be on the first brick. So yeah, and that's cool. And I guess, you know, you and I are still there too. Like you know, we're learning
Always.
things all the time. You know, there's
Yeah.
there's like people like Charlie Spears and Cypher and Casey and all these people that know way more than you. And, you know, we might know a lot, but it's so nice to like learn from them as well. Udi's,
Yeah.
you know, yeah,
Well, and
I
I
laughed at Udi's
think as
article.
Bitcoiners, we learn like you and I gravitate more towards I don't want to say the marketing of it, but like the
Yeah.
social cultural layer of it. Obviously for you, it's very heavily into the artists and fostering the artists and helping the artists with on Gamma. And your new pet project, which we'll talk about in a bit, on just rounding out this ecosystem. So everybody has different contributions. Actually, in my real life, I run a tech company, but we decided not to develop a Web3 because my business partner, who's freaking one of the best coders I know, he's like, you know what? Because remember in the Ethereum days, it's like another $292 million hack. He's like, I don't want to be
Mm.
that guy. I don't ever want to be the guy accidentally responsible for someone losing that kind of money. And I'm like, you know what? I respect that. And we're both super into Bitcoin and crypto and we dabble here. So I'm like, you know what? I'll do what I do best. Like, you know, I run the company, but I do all the marketing and I'm like, I'll just do podcasts and I'll do it because I love it, you know, and that's the beauty of Bitcoin. Like if you were committed and dedicated to Bitcoin and you stacked whatever that is, whether it's zero point 0.1 Bitcoin or 10 or 100 Bitcoin, whatever it is, if it does what we think it's due and what we're seeing right now, right? We hit
Mm.
121 yesterday, we're back to 117 or 16. But I mean, the rating's on the wall, right? I don't think it matters what Congress does it. Like none of the stablecoin bill matters. Like Bitcoin is going to absolutely melt faces, in which case we can work on our pet projects, do what we want to do, and build a culture that's authentic and hopefully mute a lot of the people that are just like the people who come in and out of our space who are just they're just they're grifters. Like there's no other way to put it. They're in it to make quick money. There's nothing wrong with being in it to make money, but you better believe you're going to get weeded out, hopefully pretty quick. Although some people just are repeat offenders and people just keep buying their shit. But you know what? I used to get really pissed at that. And I'm like, I can't control if you're going to fall for the same, if you're going to fall in the same like bear trap every time, like I can't teach you not to, you know, I can only tell you what I would do. And I've learned over the years, just like stacking sats, like I've made a lot of good business investments in my life and a lot of good ones, a lot of bad ones, but by far Bitcoin with like just buying it and learning about it was by far the best one. Like we don't have to do anything, you know?
I know sometimes sitting on your hands is the hardest thing for people to do. I think because like the ordinal space obviously, has the art side. Obviously, PFPs are still art. There's an artist behind all the art, but
Sure.
let's just like throw them in two different camps just for this conversation. Like, the degens are going to degen and they're going to try and get Bitcoin in different ways, and people are going to spend, people are going to lose. Look, like people using Bitcoin is healthy, really. Like
Right.
I know that like aside from that, people are transacting on Bitcoin where they in otherwise, before this they weren't. And it's funny, I saw just a quick chart the other day, and it was like June last year, so maybe like 13 months
Yeah.
ago, Bitcoin was at 60K, and now it's at hovering almost at 120. So if you just bought Bitcoin then, you've done a 2x, and you've invested where 100% gain in a year, that's unheard of. I'm
Yeah.
not saying it's going to do that every year, but like if you just bought some Bitcoin then, you would have made 100%, which like for any investor is like a wild return in a year. So
Yeah.
it's funny, like have your fun, but certainly like ensure that you're just putting some Bitcoin aside. Like kind of I always like, obviously, we could get into wallet hygiene and whatnot, but people should be storing things in different accounts
Right.
and obviously have all their security and have their seed phrases very safe and whatnot. But like you can have your degen account, kind of like your
Of
disposable fun
course.
account, like willing to let this go to zero, so to speak, but make sure that you're stacking sats on the side because it's Bitcoin's going to do what I think it's going to do. And like you said, we're seeing what's happening now. It's not even, if you look back at 2021, 2017, it did the same thing along these sorts of timelines. It's funny how history is rhyming every 4 years. Like you think it's not going to, and then it just is.
Yeah, because the history of 4-year cycles is always generally you get the big bull runs like 14, 15, 16 months later, right? Which is exactly, I believe, where we are right now.
Yeah,
Usually,
post halving.
usually these are the peaks after the halving, but I really think this market cycle, even though it's rhyming right now in going up to new all-time highs, I don't. Whereas other cycles, then it would crab settle and find a new home higher, but maybe not at this 120 peak. I just, with all the demand and all the banks in America and across the world trying to get in and use it for loans, the Stablecoin Act, all these things that it's trying to get it into the mainstream TradFi system, which we don't care about, but it certainly
Mm.
helps our bag and it certainly helps for adoption, right? And I just think this cycle, it's going to go way higher. It has to.
Yeah, well, interestingly, in 2021, the peak was around late November, early December before it cooled, right off, and then there are a few other factors after that. So it's like if it does that, if obviously anyone watching this is not financial advice,
No.
but if late November was the peak, that's still a few months away. It's still got a long way to go, and perhaps it doesn't necessarily mirror that just because of like the difference with ETFs and how so much of it's just being accumulated
Right.
more or less off chain, with big funds like BlackRock, even, strategy, whatnot, like just buying it up off Coinbase. That's not then, that's not even, in my opinion, that's not being priced in because that's not just like Bitcoin being bought on the exchanges. That's kind of like happening off chain, so to speak.
Right.
And that's like a wild amount of Bitcoin that's being like gobbled up.
And think about it just from you zoom out just on companies. So you got Strategy, who just, like, it's not even news anymore. The only news with Strategy
No.
is if there's a week they don't buy, or like, wait, they didn't buy, like it's
What happened?
it's the opposite is true. Yeah, but I mean, so it's Strategy. You've got that Japanese company that's kind of mirroring them, and now you've got more springing up in the U.S. certainly, but. I mean, think about it. I know Microsoft voted it down, and it's not like we care about Microsoft, but I'm just saying, like, there are $500 billion plus company treasuries out there that at some point be like, you know what, let's just buy a couple billion. Well, that's a couple billion, and
Yeah.
the bigger it gets, obviously, the less of an impact that makes. But there's not a ton of Bitcoin on the exchanges. Like, it's just funny. Like if you look at our space, you and I haven't really, like, we're talking more macro. We're talking just kind of
Yeah.
our experiences. Like, Bitcoin is ripping, and yet you and I on the timeline see, like, there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of FUD because when Bitcoin when an underlying currency rips, which has never happened in history because underlying currency is always slowly just the hole in the bathtub just gets bigger and bigger, right? So it always goes down. We're not used to this thing. So the art asset would always have to appreciate far more than the value of the currency depreciates. But now we have this currency that it's hard to even think about it. Like you said it before, you and I doing nothing and sitting on our hands. Like we were all taught to be like productive members of society and to like do things and to make money and invest and do that stuff. We found a currency where you invest, like literally it's not even a stock. It's like an underlying base zero layer of something where you can just put a couple nuggets in, and almost that is like planting a tree that then grows in value. And we've never experienced it before. So I think there's going to be a whole net, like back in the Renaissance, it was always like the like precocious children of super rich families who'd become the astronomers, the scientists. Now we might have another generation of that, of like people who can like just focus on way bigger ideas and be not just a scientist, not just a doctor, but they can have like multi passions and probably solve problems for humanity way better.
Yeah, look, I love that. Something that I've thought about as well. And Bitcoin is doing its job. It's doing what it was set out to do. It's like meant to be there to sort of like help people's lives in different ways. And that's why it's also healthy to sell off bits as you go. Like if you need to sell your whole stack, obviously you need to, but I hope that people don't need to do that, but everyone lives a different life. But, it's there. If it appreciates, you take some off right. And, buy your dream house or, look after your kids and whatever. But, but that's it. It's doing its job. It's making, you can zoom out and have a look where it started to where it is now. And I find that really interesting. There hasn't really been opportunities like that globally to everybody like this really before. And I think it also, that mentality of buy something and just relax, don't check the chart 5 seconds later, like, with meme coins and all that stuff. So it's like the same thing I think goes with like art on Bitcoin or artists, or, if you buy something that you love, and I know it's not exactly the same, you don't have to check what it's worth the next day. And I think like that Bitcoiner mentality is one reason why I'm like very, very passionate personally. And obviously, Gamma, that's why we've chosen to be an art focused platform, is because it's not that degen flipping trading sort of like, where's that meme coin? I just bought, coins on this kind of like meme coin site and I need to check 5 seconds later whether I need to like quickly get out or, and I think that feeds into that slower, more like art-based philosophy. Like you said, people, or you would have bought a piece of art and you can just sit on it and perhaps like in time, like no one has got long time horizons. This is our explore page on Gamma. It's part of the new site, which super proud of, but an amazing way to just freely explore art. There's a whole bunch of different ways you can see there, prints, originals, drops, and if you scroll down, it's just like free scroll, show you what partner artists and whatnot have been up to. But it feeds into that art thesis of like buy something that you love. Obviously then there's the benefits of like supporting artists and helping them advance their careers, but also just owning something beautiful that is going to last, and Bitcoin's going to last. And it's the same thing with art on Bitcoin. And I find that fascinating because degens are going to degen. We saw it in Vegas. We saw people throwing chips on the table, but I don't want to buy a meme coin and check 5 seconds later whether I'm like, you're not going to lose your bag if you buy like a little bit of Bitcoin. You don't even need to check. Come back in 5 years,
It gets so stressful. Like you said, like how many times have you're degenning, you're on X, you're talking to people.
We've all done it.
You're in a group and you buy something and then I go on with my life and I'm like, cause when you're buying super, speculative meme coins, you better be at your desk and like, not buy and sell out of FOMO and FUD, but actually like kind of have a plan, be like, you know what? And not be afraid to be like, oh, it's going to go higher. It's like, really, is it, not be afraid to get out really quick. It's just interesting. Like I did a post the other day and it actually for me, I don't post a ton. I do a lot of video, but I don't, I try not to be a slave to the algorithms, but I know they're like post twice a day and do this and do that to, and I just like, especially in the summer, I'm like, you know what, I'll re-engage later. But I just made a post and I'm like, you know what, anyone who's playing the Ordinals game and isn't like looking at a 20-year time horizon, like you're not going to make it. And it's funny because all the artists were like Ordinals, Ordinals, Ordinals. So it was like, it was their rallying cry. But then a lot of like the traders and the meme coiners were like, dude, this is a joke. This is pure cope. And like Ordinals are never going to keep up with the pace of Bitcoin melting faces. And I was like, I never want to post just to be like, rah, 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 algorithm. And I was like, was that just like an algorithmic post? Like I believe it because I think it's going to take time for people to get into Ordinals. I just don't think we have a lot of people there. I think ETH has a pretty healthy generative art ecosystem. Obviously they have a 4-year head start. I think the crypto punk ethos, especially now that it's not with Yuga, is a really good layer of, call it 3,000-4,000 people, but probably really like 800-900, like pretty focused people into generative art and the keepers of the flames of that culture. We have a lot more. We have some 10K collections, and PFPs are art and there's some strong communities, but there's a lot of, I don't know, it's much newer and who knows what's going to stand the test of time. But I don't know, what would your take be? Like, obviously, even in the art world, most art does not outpace just investing in the stock market. And obviously with Bitcoin, where the underlying asset just keeps getting exponentially more valuable every cycle, do you think buying art now as an investment has a chance to keep up with Bitcoin?
I think it would be the wrong thing to say yes, because like, it would be a bit irresponsible. You look throughout time, I think some art, yes. I think some art definitely.
100%.
If you look at, and that would go for like the trad art world as well. Some people would have gotten really lucky, or
Right.
potentially they'd say they weren't lucky because they think they picked the right thing. But I'd say in the end that they got lucky. Like there are things that are hot now, artists that are big now, but I don't think we can predict that in for 5 years away and 10 years away, 15, 20 years away. And there are actually, it was a great conversation in Nashville. It was my panel, so I'm a little biased, but
Yeah, it's fine.
I was MC there, but I hosted a panel with F Dot and a couple of others who were really great. And that was the discussion. They said, art movements, they take time. This is not, you can't analyze where it is right now and say this is how it's going to be. Like really see what it is in 10 years. And you think about it in crypto time, like 10 years, people like, I
I'll be
can't think
dead in
that
10
far away,
years.
but yeah. But like you said, the ETH ecosystem has first mover advantage, but it is more mature. It's been around for longer. So I think like it would be really interesting to assess where it's at in 5 years or in 10 years. Like I really do. Sure, there are things that are valuable now, and I think that that's great, and it's important because otherwise people just wouldn't engage whatsoever. But I think long time horizons and Bitcoiners, most Bitcoiners have got longer time horizons. I think that that's a really healthy place to be. And it was also going to mean that you're not going to be trying to get in and get out and get in and get out and get in and out all the time
Right.
and like and also just buy things that you love. Like I see it.
Here, here.
I really do see it. Maybe someone will call me idealistic as a way to collect art. I think digital art is already but will be a way that people collect art. I've got a couple of digital frames up around, one in my office, one in my
Yeah,
house.
me too.
When my Yeah, and when my grandma, I love this story, the one who took us away where I bumped into that Bitcoiner friend. When she came round and saw a piece of art that I had up, that made sense to her. She's like, "Oh, okay, so you can display it." Like
Right.
there's this disconnect.
It's like a
There's a
basic thing.
disconnect. And
Oh,
once,
you can show it. It's not
yeah,
just in your invisible purse.
yeah, in my invisible wallet. Like wallet? What do you mean art is in your wallet? So I think that that's when we're gonna start to make more inroads, and that's why I find it exciting because sure, maybe some will become a good investment, but also spend what you comfortable spending because you're still spending your sats and sats still reign supreme. But it's a way to collect art, and it's a way to collect art from artists around the world that you may never ever have ever come across before. A lot before this, unless an artist was gigantic and got to tour and have things in museums or, gallery shows around the world, artists were very stuck in their locale, where they lived, maybe their local
Right.
market or their local studio. Now you can collect from artists around the world and artists get this global audience, and we know the art's going to last because it's on Bitcoin. It is a new paradigm. It's a paradigm shift, and I think it needs so much more time.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And like you said, it's just like collect, have fun with it, collect what you like. Steven and I talk about this a lot, so I want to throw it to you as well. So I just read the $12 million Stuff Shark. It's all about the traditional art scene. And
I
really,
need to read it.
oh, you've got to read it. Because not only is it an eye opener, it's really like well written, and he's really like funny and sarcastic, and like, because he's basically like, look, and I won't give the whole thing away because it goes deep into so many aspects of it, from the auction houses to the galleries to the old OG New Yorkers and to Saatchi and these guys who were influencers. But one of his nets is basically like, who gets to decide what the most expensive art is? Is it the critics? Well, it kind of used to be in the 50s and 60s, but it's really not anymore. It's the super rich billionaire class. Like, who's willing to buy this stuff? And guys who get really into it, who are billionaires, they like, if you were in their collection and then they're selling it, that's like, oh, it was in the Saatchi collection. Like, so, we know them as KOLs, but KOLs aren't the same thing as these guys. Like, because KOLs, a lot of times it's just pure grift, and in a young industry, that's
Mm.
fine. But like, what makes me nervous is like, I buy art, like you said, that I like one of my favorite pieces is one of came out of Vivid Gallery in a group called Phenomena, called it's one of the Shea devs, called Eternal Tides, and it was one of the early ones that was hooked in to the blockchain, and every block it subtly changes. It's like these waves, and you can control the speed of the waves, and every day there's a new color palette, but it's tied in to the activity on the blockchain. And I actually, one of my normie best friends growing up, we've kind of reconnected, have these long chats, and he was telling me he got into he was an alcoholic, and he's been sober for 12 years, and one of the things he got into when he was finding himself like, what do I do with myself? He got into the hobby of collecting like a certain style of, I don't know, it was like comic book art, but he collected like these kind of cool poster type art. I can't remember what kind it was. And I said, actually, I collect art too. I collect on Bitcoin. And he's like you said, didn't get it. And then I was like, here's a link. And now he actually looks, because a lot of times I forget to turn my TV on, my matte TV that displays it really big. I forget to turn it on in the morning. He'll be like, dude, look at the colors today. Like, he's into it. And I'm like, oh shit, it got through to him, but to me, that piece is priceless because they tied in with actual Bitcoin. It evolves over time. It's changing every day. Like, it's an exact fit for what I want. And I feel so lucky to have found that. But I guess, like, to me, that should be one of the premier pieces ever. But who gets to decide, like, in 10, 20 years, what's going to be like valuable and what's not,
For sure. And look, the main thing is that you love it. Like, I think that that's key. And if it ends up becoming super valuable, then that's great. But if it doesn't, you still get joy out of it.
100%.
And people were doing that with physical art that they were buying as well. So, I've told this story before. I kind of laugh at it. Up at the local shops, there's a cafe that we go to. The coffee's good, and there's a lady who has her own little art studio there, and she runs art classes and whatnot. And she's pretty good. I like some of her stuff. Um, and my daughter was looking at this little painting that she did of this heart. It was just kind of like had beautiful kind of splashed colors on it.
Right.
Obviously had pink. My daughter loves pink, and it was only $50, and so I just bought it for my daughter because I'm like, well, we'll put this in your room. You like it. It's $50. We'll support this local artist. And it's not like I'm gonna go back to that artist and be like, is my $50 painting worth more now? Like, have you sold out the rest of, have you sold out the rest of these, have you sold out the rest of these hearts?
Yeah. Hey,
Like,
what
it
are
doesn't
you
matter to
working
me.
on now? Let me see your evolution.
Yeah, yeah. Do I get a,
Show me
do
what
I
you
get an
got.
airdrop for, yeah. And I know that it's never going to be like that, but I hope that it shifts more to that side. Maybe I'm idealistic, but I think it can. And like Bitcoin price will go up, and like I guess when artists are considering the pricing of their work, they potentially consider it more in USD, so it'll cost less Sats than say it
Right.
used to. It's funny if you think about when Ordinals started 2023, say like Feb, well, at least that's when we kicked off.
Yeah, January,
And so,
February. It's kind of when it hit
January,
the
February
public. Yeah.
2023, Bitcoin was at, I don't even think it was at 40 yet. I think it was at like 20, 20. Oh, I'm guessing like 28, something like
Yeah,
that.
I think it was mid to low 20s because
Yeah.
I bought an early ordinal and I'm embarrassed to admit what I even spent on it, but it was a
Well,
lot.
it's funny because it's,
Yeah,
yeah.
back
Well,
then it
now
was
it's
a
a
lot,
lot.
and now I'm like, oof, like love it, but it was a lot,
Yeah. So that's going to be what it's going to be. But, obviously, like as Bitcoin goes up, you're going to spend less sats than back then. But yeah,
Right.
that's just the whole journey. But circling back, it's just funny because obviously I'm not going to go back to that art studio and ask that lady, what my painting is worth now. But
Right.
I just hope that the space shifts in that direction somewhat because I think that that would be super healthy and also invite more artists in. I think sometimes that pressure, that financialized pressure, can kind of like scare people off as well. But again, in saying that, like physical art, trad art's been around for so much longer, so we'll just see. And again, that's where you need the longer time horizon. So I'm here for it.
Yeah, for sure. You kind of dodge my question a little bit. Maybe there's no
Did I?
maybe there's no answer to who decides?
Yeah. Well, who
Is
decides?
it
Yeah,
going to
you
be
did ask that.
future KOLs? Is it going to be, obviously you and I are entrenched in the space. We've got Stephen Millers who are so insightful on this
It'll be
stuff.
Steven.
I hope so. Yeah. If anyone deserves it, Stephen and, like Roger
Yeah.
Dickerman and those guys, but
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I just, it makes me nervous that it's going to be the next gen of KOLs and, but like you
I don't
said,
think it will be though.
you don't think so?
Yeah. No, look, yeah, sorry to cut you off.
No,
I
please.
think to answer your question, if I'm gonna have a stab, like if you said like rather than me being diplomatic and saying like, we'll see, if I was to say if I think that it will be like I wouldn't be surprised if these big institutions, and we've already seen like David Bailey basically came out and said it. I'm not super au fait with what they're doing with like Nakamoto and the whole thing, but the CEO, the founder of I don't know if he's founder actually, but CEO of Bitcoin Mag, David Bailey, who does a great job organizing. He's the lead of Bitcoin Vegas and all the Bitcoin conferences. But there he basically tweeted like, yeah, we'll be buying Bitcoin art, we'll be buying some ordinals, there'll be digital art up in these places, and I think that as we start to see more like I kind of hate it because we shouldn't necessarily rely on this, but I think we're going to see some corporate adoption, like just like you see in big
Right.
boardrooms, they own some art. I think that we're going to see that, and I think that that will dictate it somewhat. But what I'm also hoping is that as digital art becomes a more common way to collect art, people are going to come in with like fresh eyes. They're not going to be like us on Twitter every day, being like, "Oh, so and so posted about this piece,
Right.
now it's going to
So
pump."
way less
They're going to
biased,
pick what
right?
they like.
They're going to be
Yeah,
way
I think
less
there's going to be less
biased.
bias. I think we're going to get more like honest and like just more like yeah, I spoke about this yesterday. Yeah, I think that we will. People will be like, "Oh, that's cool," and then more people might pile into it. It might go mainstream. Someone might, like I laugh like Udi talked about the whole Dogecoin thing in his article the other day. I don't know if you read it, and there'll be like the public who have no prior opinions. They come in with fresh eyes, like I said, and maybe they'll post about a piece of art and it will go viral on TikTok or something, and that might like lift the price of it. It might be something that just we would never have expected because it wasn't like uh, the cabal driven thing or the kind of like blue chip piece at that point in time.
Right.
I think that that could happen.
Yeah, and like if you get, you've got these new groups coming in to really, bring more money into Bitcoin art and buy some stuff. Like someone's got to, the Stephen Millers and the Dickermans, like, have the confidence and understand, who's first doing what. And first doesn't always matter. It's also who utilizes the blockchain to its fullest, right? Like there's so many ways, and we've got sat numbers, like who uses the most beautiful blend of recursion with sat attributes, with this, with that. And how old is it? What was the order of the inscription? Like, are you a fan of like old ordinals and
Yeah.
provenance? So you,
Yeah, I love that you brought that up. I think that I don't think that there's one kind of blend that rules them all. I think that every ordinal should tell its story. I
yes,
do like parent-child provenance. I understand that there are certainly ways in which it can be too expensive to be used, or it can be tricky given like collection size and whatnot. I think that there's different ways to have provenance. I do love generative art and whatnot that uses a mix of all of those things. I'm a big fan when it comes to the special sats, and I really like special sats. I've always been a bit of a numbers guy. Like back when I was a teacher, I absolutely loved teaching maths just because I just find beauty in numbers.
right.
Um, but I just think that this if special sats are to be used, they need to be used for a reason. We see a lot of collections that are on uncommons that are now like worth not much, and they're on pizza. It's like, why did you use them? I think the why is really important. The why comes through a lot in art. It's like,
Yeah.
sure, you can just create but it's like when the why is powerful, I think that that's really important. I do love the provenance aspect. And for me, you can buy palindrome sets like you've got up there
Did you see?
quite
I wanted to
cheaply.
pull this one up specifically. I just saw this. I was waiting for one to appear. Did you see? It's the first.
17 Bitcoin. What's the
It's the first 1D
threes?
pally. It's all threes. It's the first one I've
It's
seen.
amazing.
So I was gonna say there's 9 or 10 of them, but there's probably more, because then you have the 2010 blocks, which
Yeah.
are 13 digits, and then you get the 14 digits ones. There might even be 3 sets of them, but it's pretty cool. Obviously, I don't know who's going to spend 17, but I thought it was pretty cool. Like the first one got discovered. Like I'm a huge fan of, the rare sats, and I love the people
Yeah.
inscribed on epics. Although I feel like an epic, like what was inscribed there, it was super cool, but I'm like, an epic's got to be like, that's got to be like the modern day, like a Banksy or something, like nobody, not anybody, you don't just get to do an epic. But I guess if you're going to spend 33 Bitcoin, you get to do an epic. But yeah, there's just so many elements to it. And then, some people, I'm not super into the Rotomore names, but some people are into the names that it creates. To me, that's almost an abstracted layer, because I think, it's kind of random how the letters were generated, but the sat numbers, like they count from the original, from block 1, sat 0, whatever, all the way to now. So
Exactly.
that one, why would you number it any other way? So that one would hold water with me going forward. But yeah, there's so many ways to do an ordinal. And sometimes, like, I don't get too involved in the Ethereum, Bitcoin, turf battles. Like, to me, I think it's stupid, because I actually like
Yeah.
generative art everywhere. I kind of agree with Steven on that. I'm more interested in Bitcoin. That's probably where I will buy my generative art. But if I see a really cool piece from an artist I love on the East Side, and it's totally on chain, like, I'm in. I don't think ETH's as valuable a chain as Bitcoin, obviously monetarily, but also otherwise. But I still think, ETH was that's what they were first at, and they do good at it, and they've got a very entrenched culture. So I like, why fight? Just like, it takes a while to educate people, like you said, and everyone's like, wait for the Bitcoin whales to come in. Wait, like, quit trying to predict who's going to come in. Just like, be curious, have these conversations that you and I are having, and just like buy art, like, that's, it doesn't have to be expensive. Like right now, nothing is expensive, and unless you get a Tramper Wizard, which I'm gonna hard pass on that stuff. But most of the stuff is still fairly affordable.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that. And I also would buy generative art fully on chain on ETH too. I think I'm just more of an on chain person. Once you go on chain, you don't go
No, you
back.
don't.
um,
By
and I really
IFP,
also,
IPFS,
yeah,
like bye bye. Nope.
yeah. Look, for some people, they're probably using it for trading purposes. I'm not really a trader at all, so I just can't involve myself. Plus, I just don't have the mental bandwidth with work and doing that. And I
Right.
love that you said that about emerging artists and like someone like Roger or Steven, and there are obviously others taking a chance on that. That's something which is really important with what we do at Gamma, with the partner program. It's not how big you are, it's not how big your account is. It's, we all artists. So if you go, for example, like all our partners are in there, but if you go to Explore Prints, you can see some of their work in there. Um, but they can get in fairly and transparently. And then if you click on the left-hand side, you can see like the grid view.
Right.
Rather,
Oh,
item view is cool, but grid view will just give you a bit of a.
yeah,
So
no.
yeah,
This is awesome.
on the new site, you can look in item view, grid view, or list view, depending on like what sort of person you
Right.
are, and
This
then you
is
can see
like you want
across
to
the top.
trade, you want to
That's
compare. This is
yeah,
like you want to look, you want to be visual and
browse,
compare
yeah,
everyone. No, this is
and then item view is like the gallery, like kind of like immersive scroll.
got it. Okay,
Um,
so it's like you see one at a time. You get a little bit of
yeah,
the artist bio and what's going on with them and
yeah, exactly. And there's like the all new sort of like artist profiles and whatnot. But yeah, look, so like with the partner program, anyone and everyone can, it's open for application. All artists are encouraged to apply. The in-house curation team makes quite an extended shortlist, and then that extended shortlist goes to our current partner artist like cohort, and then they cast a vote for 10 artists to get in for the next month, totally anonymously. And so it's decentralized the voting, like they choose who joins their artist community, which is really powerful, and they love that, and they love being
yeah.
involved in the process. And so again, it just doesn't matter the size of someone's account or whether they've been big before and whatnot. Like there's a huge range of artists, and that's been something really important at Gamma is that like when you have these sort of like curated areas, you want it to be for all artists, not just artists that are the same ones that you see kind of being like posted on the timeline. And so that's been really cool, and also gives artists their chance because then they get seen, and they've got all the kind of like benefits and perks and whatnot of being part of the partner program. You would have seen them displayed around the place in Vegas and obviously in Nashville and Miami, and so we make really big effort to kind of like cast really expose them and display them in as many places as possible, and also provide them that support to get onto Bitcoin. That's why I love what I do as well. It's funny, some people say, "Oh, how did you go from being a teacher to what you do now?" But the skill set is the same. It's all about education. Like every artist is at their sort of like point in the journey, and
Yeah.
they, that you teach them at their point of need, and you help them grow at their point of need, and like. So I love it. I bring so much of my like teaching skill, which I love teaching just after 10 years and post-COVID kind of like lockdowns and
Oh,
whatnot.
I
I'd had enough, and I
can't
was
even
like
imagine.
lucky enough to get a chance to work at Gamma. But yeah, there's a bit of a story there. But yeah, man, so I was the pivot, because I already, like I said earlier, got into Bitcoin in 2017. My understanding of blockchain and my understanding of this space was already there. So like
Yeah.
the pivot wasn't that big because so much of my job takes skills that I used as a teacher, communication, planning, strategy, like working in different networks, working in groups, just it's just online rather than
Yeah.
in person.
This is cool. Like you made a really good point. And I just want to drive it home. Just looking at this art, like a it just goes to show me like, if someone said like, are you into Bitcoin ordinals and art? And, do you know a lot of artists? I'd be like, yeah, sure. And I'm looking at this. I'm like, there's like 20 pieces in here at least that I'm like, this is awesome. I would buy it. And it's so different. Like you've got so many different styles in here. You've got more like computer driven art, and you've got more just like, whether it's AI painting or it's literally, sketching, however they do it on their iPad, or even writing on actual canvas and then taking photographs and getting it fully on chain. It doesn't, I love Lemon Haze. I love what he says. He's like, I don't I don't talk about generative art because it's the word to do. It's like,
Mm.
he's like, art is art. Like, it doesn't matter what you use. It's using the right tools to make the art that you love. And I totally agree with him. And I love his hot takes. He's always pushing the limits and challenging everybody to think out there in the timeline. But to me, clearly you guys have great curators here to not just like, where it's like, hey, everybody's kind of like followed into the groupthink thing. No, everybody's got their own take and their own in totally unique style on what art is. I mean, you've got, I love the stuff that's the obviously, what are we fighting for, by Michelle Thompson here, like
Yeah.
you've got, I love the artists. And I think a lot of the real physical Bitcoin art we saw at the Bitcoin conference, a lot of that is that fighting and that like, and you got Coldy, who's like got old ripped paper dollars. It's like fiat and the burning of fiat and really this birth of a new currency. Like there are these themes, but then you look here, like look at print of a print of a print. Like to me, if I had that actual physical on my wall, that's first and foremost art. It's art.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
fucking beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Like there's just so many, and if you go to the top, there's so many ways to now explore art as well. You can, search through the different artists, you can look at the styles and themes and color and even price points and all that. So that's all been part of our on the new app, like really helping to discover art and kind of like really drill down or get granular in terms of the art that you love. Um, and yeah, that's the thing. It's given the opportunity for all of these artists who come from all different backgrounds all around the world to preserve their art on Bitcoin. And like you said, some people love the art that's, perhaps they're like, into generative art or they're into the art that uses Bitcoin and Bitcoin data to do things. But there are also just amazing, there's amazing examples of whether it's just like a flat JPEG, if you want to call it
Right.
that, that's now preserved on Bitcoin. And I think that that's really special. And that's the thing I was talking about with like special sats, for example, like that 17 Bitcoin Pally that was 333333333.
Right.
If you were to inscribe on that, at least in my opinion, and I'm, certainly that's Raylan. Those physicals were displayed at Vegas actually. So
Dude, these
it's
are.
cool that she's sort of got digitals and physicals that go together. Actually, that I'll talk about that in a
I
second 'cause I
went
find
right
that
to this
exciting.
one. Like, not
Like
not
Sats
that there weren't a
cards.
hundred cool ones, so maybe this was just a lottery. But
Yeah.
right when I saw that, I'm like, oh, that would hang so well in my home.
Yeah, she's so cool. She's also a very, very talented gen artist, but creates beautiful physical stuff as well. And tying these ones together, it was cool in Vegas to see. And I know Chip from Ordinal Miners was part of that chat with Sats cards. I'm really looking forward to Sats cards becoming much more publicly accessible, where we can have authenticated physical art where it is authenticated directly on Bitcoin. I think it's going to do wonders for physical art and authentication and reducing fraud and whatnot, because we're going to get that provenance, and that's where parent child will become really cool
Oh,
with those as
interesting.
well.
So, because I
Yeah.
have a bunch behind me here, I have a bunch of. I know Chip's been doing this forever, but I've got a bunch of Casey and Aaron's Sats cards where,
Oh, you've got some.
it
Nice.
hooks. Yeah, I bought a ton of them. That hooks right into ordinals.com. Um, but how can you use that? Because I know Chip has those awesome prints and drawings
With
of the
Sheeple.
sheep. Yeah, the
Yeah.
sheeple. And how is he tying the cards together with that to show more proof of authenticity?
Yeah, so to put it simply, obviously you can't lose the card, but hopefully you're not losing the painting. And if the card's embedded in the back of the painting or the
Okay.
drawing of the sheeple, for example, you can then tap and scan it and it'll take you to ordinals.com, or hopefully that Explorer stays live, but it'll take you to an Explorer of some description and you can see that it is that one. And obviously if there is parent child use, then that way, you can see that the painting that you own and the ordinal that's like, I guess, embedded in the card that's on the back of your painting, or I keep saying painting, on the back of your artwork,
Right.
uh, that is the actual official one. So it's as simple as that, really. It's like
Okay.
this is authenticated on Bitcoin. You can see that this is by the artist that it says it's by, and it points, back at the original or the inscribed piece on Bitcoin. So I think that cross-pollination and the ability to authenticate on Bitcoin, whether or not it's even authenticated by the artwork itself or just some data that says this is who knows what the artists are going to want to do and how they're going to want to represent it. But I think that that's going to be really fascinating for collectors in general, but also for like reducing art fraud, which is like a huge issue in the physical art world as well.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. They had the whole chapter on it in the $12 million stuffed shark. So because I
Yeah,
just read it, I deem myself for the next 3 months while I still remember the book a total
you're an
expert
expert.
in that. But you're right, there's so many frauds, and they were even saying like over the years, like a whole group of paintings from a certain old famous artist were, I don't know if it was it doesn't matter who it was, but they were like, they're totally fake. And then the price of those, obviously this person's holding it. They're like, what? Like, this is fake. And then some people will take a gamble, buy them for like, 10% of the price if it was real. And then 10 years later, they'll be like, oh, it's real. Like some other expert, and you're like, holy crap.
Yeah,
Like, how crazy
yeah,
is that? I was thinking when you were saying like what Chip is doing and just how you could tie Sats cards to the actual physical piece, it would be cool if it's on the back somehow. But there was a way,
yeah,
just like with like Cassatius coins, where if you like actually take it off, that inauthenticates it, right? Like those holographic strips were, once that seal is broken, if someone did try and meddle with it, put a different Sats card on it or whatever, it actually would not have kind of that badge of authenticity. So there's so many cool things you do, but like you said, in the future, think about like the older generations obviously are still like, it's got to be physical and stuff. We're these crazy insane people of all ages who are like, no dude, it's on chain digital, it's forever. Like, don't you realize it's gonna outlast like me, my kids, my grandkids, my great grandkids? Like, this is insanely mind-blowing. But like you said, it's nice. Like, it's great to have the screens. Like, I have a really good matte TV. Like, they're really getting better. I got a big one to show Eternal Tides, and they're getting better and better, and it's reducing the glare, so it really looks like a picture frame. But hanging stuff in real life in your house, whether it's a print of an ordinal or it is interactive and it is on a more matte TV that feels like it's display, it's so much cooler. And like your grandma said, like, oh, now I get it. That's the enjoyment of it. That's art.
exactly. And that's why people have bought art since forever, to enjoy and to, feel something and to have up. And I love it because, depending on the size of your house, you can run out of space for physical art. Whereas if you've got a frame or a digital frame, you can rotate what you show. You can have this deep collection and show off, the art that you buy. And, one week you can have something up and the next week you can have something else up. It's kind of this like ongoing kind of personal gallery.
Right.
Um,
And
so,
sometimes you want to
that,
just
that
mix it up. Like sometimes you want
yeah,
to, like, you only have one over the fireplace spot and you sure you're going to have that piece de resistance, but you're also, sometimes you want to just mix it up, and sometimes you want to just put a picture of your goofy family on there. Like, you just, it's
my kids love that.
yeah. Oh yeah. Like, hey dad,
Yeah, yeah.
my favorite thing was when the picture frames were new. Like, my kids, when they were younger, would have like a birthday party or something. I'd be like, hey everybody, right when they get there, I take a picture of all of them. And then 2 hours later, they'd swim or whatever. They'd be all eating birthday cake and pizza and stuff. And then the picture behind them, they'd be like looking at like, they study like, wait, that's me, like and all of a
Yeah.
sudden it clicks. They're like, oh, that's digital. Cause I bought those. Do you remember murals? Have you ever seen those? I think it was a US based company, but they were the first one to make really good digital picture frames. They're totally matted. It looks like a picture and it's no glare. And then I hid the wire in the wall, so you can't even tell. And at night it glows a little more, but during the day it looks like a print or a painting or whatever. And so they're just like, wait, how, like they don't like, how is this possible? Something, what did he print it, then frame it? Like, they just don't get it, but it's super fun.
That is, yeah. There's some frames now that you can even like just send art to. There's a good story behind that piece. I chatted with Ryan Bell the other day.
This
He
is awesome. I've come back. You've noticed I've come back to this like 3 times since.
Quite
like,
a few
this
times.
is cool.
Yeah. He Ryan actually might be, or like it's been exposed that he might be like one of the first artists ever to put a piece of art, call it art if you want, or the first ever on-chain NFT back in 2012 on a fork of Bitcoin called Namecoin.
No
There's
way.
there's an account on X called Archivist, and he's like, I think it's a he. He sort of digs quite deep. Maybe go to Ryan Bell and see if unless you can't. I don't know if Archivist. I don't know if it is Archivist. Anyway, if you go to Ryan Bell, you'll see it somewhere on his.
All right.
I Ryan Bell, like an iPod, but
This has got to be him, right?
where is he? No, no, it's not him. Back.
It's like some
It's the third one.
pundit.
It's the third one through, if I can see. Yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
yeah. So if you scroll down, you'll find the article by Archivist. But yeah, he put the fuck yeah guy, which is like this old meme from Reddit, on chain on Namecoin, and it kind of got found out recently that it was him. He'd forgotten about it. So yeah, there's a good story about him.
That's awesome.
And yeah,
He's so
and that's
talented. Oh, there's you.
well, there's our chat. And yeah, so that's his Genesis piece that you keep going back to on Bitcoin. But yeah,
Where's
that's it there. Do you see the fuck?
where's the
If you
where's
go
the
scroll
piece
down
that
a
he?
bit.
Okay, so keep going.
Oh, okay, yeah, the piece that you keep going back to, I mean. But where was that? Did you see the fuck yeah guy go up? There was like that funny pixel kind of like very memey. It's
This.
yeah,
Oh,
there.
here we
It
go.
was there's Archivist.
So he put
So yeah,
this on. So an old Bitcoin fork was Namecoin back whenever, and he had
2012, yeah.
put
He
that
created
in
this
the witness
like
data or whatever. And
well, yeah, I'm not exactly sure. Like you were able to essentially it was like one of the early from memory, and so don't quote me if you're watching this and you know it more deeply than I do. You can read the article, probably, say a lot
yeah,
more.
for sure.
Essentially, it was like one of the first goes at kind of like a naming system, like ENS or
Yeah.
or naming systems. And so Namecoin was all about that. And so he kind of like I guess minted, I don't know the correct terminology, a name, and then he embedded the artwork, this fuck yeah guy, it's fun to say, uh, into some data that has been able to be decoded from that name. And so it's still able to be decoded. It's still on chain, on the people that still run whatever the node where whatever you need to run to like run Namecoin. So it's still there. And it might be the first, but they said at least it's one of the first definitely like on-chain NFTs ever. So it's a pretty fun story, really. Like he'd forgotten about it. He literally told me like he's like I forgot that I even did it. It wasn't important to me, and then it got dug up, and like wow, I'm part of history, I guess.
Yeah, it's
So
it's
kind of
cool how
like
it sounds like you're saying it's kind of resurging, and
yeah,
it's as this kind of like it's like a movie that in the theaters was a total dud. I mean, maybe because it's too cheesy, but then it gets this like cult following later, and the person's like, "Oh shit! Like I made that on like a shoestring budget, and and thank you." Like it's just cool to see that things can get life after after you have long
a
forgotten
long
about
time,
it.
really.
Yeah,
And I think that's interesting. I think it probably like, links back to your question about who decides like what's valuable. Yeah, that's his piece on Bitcoin.
it's so cool.
Um, who decides what's valuable? Like who knows? Like something might get dug up in a long time because that's the thing. This Bitcoin art is going to exist over for as long as Bitcoin exists. And if Bitcoin doesn't exist, then I think the world's in a big problem. So, it's going to exist for as long as Bitcoin exists, and something might get dug up because it's on chain, be able to decode it, and that piece might become famous. And it might not be famous now, but it might be famous in, I'm just going to throw a number out there. It might be famous in 50 years. Someone will be like, look at this piece of art that was inscribed on Bitcoin in 2023. Like
Yeah.
it maybe never ever traded and then becomes like some grail. So who knows? Yeah.
Yeah, it's so cool. So you guys do a lot of additions on.
We do, but if you go to drops, if you go up to the top, explore and then drops, and then you can kind of like
So these
you
are
know,
more
go
one of ones.
there's like well yeah, there can be one of ones or
Oh, I
collections. You know,
see.
you can look it up. So top left you'll see that drops I think the drop down you can click on collections. You can essentially you know, explore to your heart's desire with all of our new
Oh, okay.
discovery functionality.
Yeah, you guys have done a
But yeah, you
really
can
good job at simplifying. It's like you keep it simple for them at first. Be like, oh, I know these three boxes, and I know I want to see the pretty pictures, but then you can really start digging into like finding art, because that's one of the hardest things.
yeah,
It's like my company developed three of the first 50 apps for the iPhone back in the day. And at
hats
first
off.
there was a handful of us, and we were just cranking out as many apps as we could to make money. It was kind of like the early days of NFTs or ordinals. It was no different, but it's just now the iterative cycles are so much faster. But over time, the hardest part is more and more and more come. Apple obviously forms partnerships. They already have them with Disney and all these big companies. So the little guy gets boxed out, and they didn't, in their search, Google's known for search. Apple is not known for search at all. Their search has always been horrible. So slowly over the years, if you didn't have like a multi-million dollar, I mean, we had the number one iPad app, and I think we got up to number 5 overall on the iPhone for like a couple weeks. I'm like, oh my god, if this lasts, like I never have to work again. And it lasted a couple weeks, and then which was
Yeah.
great. And then a new apps came in, and then we went to 20th and the 40th and the 80th, and then I think we stayed top 1,000 for a while. But just like in anything, the top 0.0001% gets like everything. It's an exponential curve. The Taproot Wizards, the OMBs, the Node Monks, like to me, sadly, it is not distributed enough. But by my point here is by having great search tools, people who are really get into art, and as more people come in again in the next bull run, they can find what they're looking for on Gamma right now at beta.gamma.io, but soon to be to go live to
Just
the main site.
correct.
Yeah, which is super cool.
Yeah, and that's been a huge gap for a long time in you know, art discovery, and so it's something that we worked super hard. You know, built the new app over a year's worth of like engineering focus. Um, yeah, this is Waves by Rosbell, which is a really nice long form generative. So that there's all different ways in which you
Yeah,
can
this
look
is
up art.
cool.
You can, like I said, like by style, by theme, by like collection size, by price. But you know that, and you know you can mix and match them. So you know it's yeah, the SML DMS, I think that's how you pronounce it. Yeah, they do really unique kind of on-chain kind of Bitcoin stuff as well. Yeah, this one's just like a Satoshi clock, so you can, well, if as it loads up, it tracks block height and then kind of like changes, and you got the Bitcoin logo with like a little homage. So, you know, like that's the thing. I love the breadth of art and artists that are out there. So there really is going to be something for everyone. You know, like this might not be your cup of tea, but maybe it is. You know, and it's like just the fact that these artists can get that global exposure, you know, on Gamma or elsewhere, I think is just like super powerful. And, you know, it's a bit of fun to be like tracking block height because someone might be like, what does that number mean? And then, you know, that might like tell a story as well for you. You can be like, well, you know, because block height's fascinating.
I'm a
I love
sucker
that.
for art that is
I'm,
tied to the blockchain and tied
so am
to
I.
each
Yeah.
block, because this to me is for a normie who comes in and sees that on your digital display. They'll be like, what is that? And you'll be like, I'm
Yep.
glad you asked, and then you explain it. They're like, huh. And the
Yeah.
conversation might continue. It might not. It depends. But yeah, this is super cool.
Yeah, yeah, look, exactly. And I am too. I think because there's stuff that you can put, I love that you can put all types of art on Bitcoin. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm very pro. I'm not like file typist
No, right.
is a funny way to call it.
Right.
But you know, like I just love that you can have artwork that is only possible on Bitcoin as well. So the stuff that really uses the Bitcoin data, that uses different SAT endpoints. And I had a conversation with Raf about that. You know, like that's why they're very, very particular and careful and specific with. Yeah, you must be on. We can go if you go up to the top and There's some
I'm
old
impressed
collections
that you
there.
guys actually have Ordinal Punks on there. I think this
I
is,
think we had a lot of the old stuff too.
oh yeah, these are awesome, dude. Most,
But like that could live on any chain, of course. But so I love, but I love that too because I love that anyone can put anything. That sort of like really fits into the Bitcoin ethos of like put what you want on Bitcoin. Like if the transaction's valid, then
yeah,
the miners are going to approve it, and no one can stop you. And I think that's why the whole op return thing was funny, even though that really wasn't to do with ordinals. But you can't stop ordinals. Like all of this filtering stuff, it's not going to work. And you're seeing, I love it. If you follow Mononaut, he's an account I encourage you to follow. I don't know what he does at mempool.space, but
right.
his account is great. Like he just says like check out this transaction, or like he like really like Eli fives or explain like I'm fives
Who am I
what's
following?
going
Who's
on
this
in
guy?
Mononaut, Monona, like an astronaut, but Mononaut.
Oh, no. Yeah. Sweet. I love following
Yeah,
like,
there you go. The mempool guy. His account's classic. So he like basically posts what's going on in the mempool and kind of explains things, and he even makes like I don't know how much he basically admits that you can't stop ordinals. I don't think I could be wrong. Mononaut, don't at me if I'm wrong. I don't think they love inscriptions or ordinals, but he'll be like, what is this? Or like, well, you can't stop this. Like it's a very kind of like fun account, but also a good one if you want to learn more about how the mempool works.
yeah, no, this is super cool. And I just saw the mempools at like point 0.1. It's just so funny because Bitcoin is,
So cheap right now.
yeah, because not a ton of people are inscribing, obviously, or the mempool fees would be higher, but people are buying Bitcoin. And to me, with low mempool fees, one thing it says right now with the price going up, you're like, people are buying Bitcoin and they're storing it
Doing
somewhere
nothing
and
with it.
they're sitting on gold, like
Yeah.
it just is what it is. And, Ordinals, obviously we push those mempool fees higher than they've ever been, certainly right before the halvening until
Do you remember the halving? I was like, how long is this going to last? It didn't last that long,
no,
surprisingly.
it lasted days.
It was, yeah, yeah.
And then
It was wild though.
yeah, and it was an exciting time. Like I haven't even thought back in that time. Like I think me and Disco at the time did a show like everybody else did, and we're talking about it. It was such a big deal. And we're like, runes are gonna go crazy, and obviously that was and a lot of people probably got rid of too many sats for too many runes. Thank goodness I wasn't one of them. Arsic was one of the ones. I got airdrop most of them. Honestly, I didn't spend a ton of money on them. I flipped a couple, bought a couple more, and probably was up a little on the whole thing. But whoever that person is just needs to be drawn out, and like just that disappearance was just so silly. But runes in general, obviously overall, just they didn't amount to what people thought they would, or maybe a rune can be nothing more until you're allowed to tie utility to it. Like until I can be like, hey, I'm crowdfunding the starting of a company. Our goal is X, Y, and Z, kind of like the cool stuff you were doing. Like you were showing me Order Gallery. So like if we could actually, legally tie runes to like ownership, and that's what I was always saying with PFPs. Like right now with PFPs, like, freaking the guys who started it, like it's hard to be a founder. I get it, but like to the winner go all the spoils, and they try and keep the community going. But, without royalties, obviously there's not a ton of incentive over time, and there's no incentive to give the money back because you legally really aren't supposed to or can't, right? But if that changed,
Exactly.
like you could do a rune and be like, okay, if you own this amount, like you own a certain amount of Order Gallery, and we're going to build it out and we're going to do different things in here. Like that's when things will get really interesting. That's when the scams will go through the roof. But if the regulation is just right, or they go after the right people and don't go after the people who are actually trying to like make a run at it, whether it fails or not, like that way of funding is going to be so much better than relying on the frickin', the VCs and the angel investors. Like some of those guys have your interest in mind and they're good money, but most are bad money. They want to see it go up exponentially in a couple of years. And if they don't, they cut the 18 that don't work. And hopefully there's 2 mega home runs and they rinse and repeat.
Yeah. Well, that's how, I guess like that's their business model. So it is what it is. Yeah, you can use your mouse to rotate properly. Yeah, look, I appreciate you shouting this out. Like you use the word utility, the word utility kind of makes me shudder a little bit because
Yeah,
I don't want to feel
fair.
like this is a utility project because I think the word utility, um, yeah, there's that piece by XC Pinata. If you press Q, you can pull up a menu and kind of
Yeah.
select whatever else you want to look at. The ones with the little Ordinals logos, they'd be like generative art or something recursive,
Oh, yeah.
because you can't actually pull in the thumbnail for those just because like
Right. They're always changing.
we load everything in off the chain. There's Polyphos by Pavel Duko. Pavel's one of our artist ambassadors at Gamma. He's a guru. I absolutely love
Pavel's,
his work.
yeah, he's awesome.
If it displays like that, it means it was inscribed like that. So we need to kind of maybe try and find a fix for that, but we can't right now
Got
because we
it.
pull it straight off the chain. But yeah, it's funny. Like we've built Audi Gallery just like as a passion. Uh, like our holders. There's the Audi Gallery pass. Actually, if you mint an Audi Gallery pass, then it unlocks your own Audi
Oh,
Gallery.
cool.
I I don't think projects necessarily have to like provide. I think OMB, there are others that, Femojis, whatever. Obviously, Sanj is still a builder, but there are projects that are. It is the PFP, it's the art, it's the culture,
Sure.
and I think that that's awesome. We just always wanted to build something, and it was something that we kind of did back from like before we migrated from Stacks as a project. That was kind of like how I got my job at Gamma back in 2020. When did I say 2022? So yeah, it was something that we were like, hey, like we want to bring things that we were like dabbling with back in that ecosystem to Bitcoin. We were like, let's see if we can build a gallery before on Cyber does, and we've worked really hard at it. It's a buddy of mine, a colleague at Gamma, who's my partner there. So we get to work in the space together, and so we've got time to kind of like have this passion project because we've certainly put more into it than what we've got
Right.
back.
Of
It's not
course.
even about that. You talk about the grifters. We're like what's the opposite of a grifter? That's this project because
I
we've
think you're
spent
called,
money
I
to
think you're
run it.
called builders, but
Are
like,
we called idiots or builders?
I don't know. Because I'm in the same boat. Like I said, I do this
Yeah.
because I love it. And if this ecosystem ever got
Yeah,
big one day,
exactly.
obviously I am not going to turn away the spoils of
No,
being
of course,
an
of course.
authentic voice in the space. But at the same time, like if you don't, I guess what I found in life, different jobs, starting different companies, like if you don't do things you're into and are curious about, like you're going to burn out so fast. And,
Yeah.
like we were saying, like you and I went to Vegas and, obviously you had a long, long day. Gamma was all over the place doing great work there, but, being the MC of an all day event, like that's a lot of work. You flew halfway around the world for it. But the beauty is, even though it's work, it's still like, it's what you
I
love
love
to
it.
do.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't be anywhere else. It's not like I remember when I worked at MTV for 12 years. And so I got to go to like E3, like cool trade shows and the toy show and all that stuff, like the fun stuff. But even that, I was like, oh, conferences, like meetings and rooms and passing out business cards. And like, I couldn't stand it. I could not stand it. This to me, like that's why I wanted to bring the bagpiper out. Like I want to keep Ordinals super weird and like unique and just that's my real life contribution to inscribing and to art and to supporting the artists. It's just like have fun, make big experiences, form friendships, and just like embrace just like life and weirdness.
Yeah, I totally resonate with that. Like even just being on this show with you, it's just fun. It's not an opportunity I would have had before. And so, like yeah, flying around the world and getting to do that. Oh, there we go. Oh, that's by Andrea Bologna. He made like a derivative
That's
of
really
a feather, which was like,
that's
but
cool.
he did some cool stuff. So he's been playing with like the crossover or the intersection between like generative art and PFPs and seeing like how can he use code to kind of like do something different with like your traditional like flat PFP if you like. So yeah,
Uh-huh.
he's another artist that I just like absolutely love. that's Eighth project. He's actually been killing it on ETH recently, so hats off to Eighth. And that's the thing. I just love that you get to collect and meet and kind of like see these artists and see what they do cross chain. Like, we were talking about before, kind of being you can rotate your mouse around and kind of like walk forward.
I'm being such a noob, like the lazy, like only. It's like when I play Minecraft and my kids are like, "Dad, use the mouse." I'm like, well,
I'm so bad at it. I've been playing Minecraft with my son a bit. Like, he's so creative. I love seeing that creativity. It's actually a really great game for that. But
oh god, yeah.
Yeah, you can press R and rotate and refresh the frame. So 64.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, the mouse wasn't okay. It wasn't
yeah.
hooking in. Now it's hooking in again.
Okay, you had clicked in. Yeah.
Oh, there it is.
And yeah, you can pull up all your art in the recursive theater.
Oh, so this is like all the pieces. So that was just a different way to look at the pieces. This is like a lot this is cool.
To explain, so the main gallery or the middle room here, this will only show like fully self-contained inscriptions. So like WebP, JPEGs, PNGs, GIFs, and whatnot.
Yeah.
Whereas in the recursive theater, you can pull up everything, but you can also pull up generative art because you can't load in a 3D environment. You can't load in all the generative art at once in the main theater or the browser will just crash. So we had to come up with a solution where you can enjoy your generative art, which is why we built the recursive theater. That's the menu for it. Obviously, it's just going to come up because you press Q. It's not going to show you in here. You have to go back to the theater.
Yeah.
But yeah, the theater was built so you could view your generative art and also view your recursive PFPs, like Femojis and other ones that use recursive tech, because otherwise the browser will just break. 3D environments are obviously like very like resource intensive on your browser. So we were stoked to build the recursive theater. It took a lot of experimentation to get it right. Now, you can go in there and see Polyphos by Pavel and Work by Andrea. And then on this side is called the 3D Garden. So if you own actual like 3D assets like GLB, GLTF, like you can see these parrots here, but also like rune stones and stuff like Bless does, like Bless, who did like a lot of early 3D work. Like he has an Audi gallery. So if you know his address, you can go visit it. And you can see some of his 3D work, like it renders there. So yeah, it shows up all your work. The middle galleries for like your fully self-contained, the theaters for your gen stuff, and obviously everything else, and then the 3D garden. So yeah, fun little thing. I love it, and it really like fits my kind of like what I love and my thesis like in the space. Well, these are 3D. Are they loading up? Otherwise, I'll have to check when I get off this. But oh yeah, there you go. Yeah, my personal project is like my baby. It's my pet project because it fits kind of even why I love working at Gamma, because we've built stuff that helps you to enjoy your art. Right. So earlier we were talking about displaying your art in your house. You and I both have digital frames, but this is just another way to kind of immerse yourself in what you collect. Because we love what we collect, and we want to enjoy it in different ways. Because, like you said, your kids, for example, like my kids love coming and visiting this. They love virtual environments.
Right.
This is going to be something they grow up with, and the whole concept of digital ownership. Like you've got kids, like they play Minecraft. Like none of the ownership stuff phases them whatsoever.
No.
Like they're like, oh yeah, cool. I own stuff physically. I own stuff digitally. It's just like it's not foreign to them. And so environments like this, whether it be what we built or what other people potentially end up building, they're going to become so commonplace, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. And it's funny because like when On Cyber did this on ETH, like I was a huge fan, and they partnered with, Artifact and, obviously Artifact. Thanks Nike or whoever ruined it, but you ruined that thing pretty big. What a joke. Yeah. But it's like, hey, this is break open this cube and maybe, no, it's still a virtual shoe. I'm like, just give me a real shoe. I want the first effing real shoe, you bastards. And that was just such a train wreck. But On Cyber did such a great job. And, as a kind of a video podcaster and video spaces, like, maybe you and I should talk. I need to make a room. Like this would be a perfect, like, this is a great backdrop, but like, I always wanted to create cause it's all about talking about the art. And, I always wanted to create kind of that intimate because you want to show off your art and you want to talk about it and have people be
Yep.
like, oh, that's so cool. And, and you can mix it up and go to different places. That's why a lot of times, like I'll start, we'll start in the main room here and we'll have our conversation in the, in the Blue Note lounge. But, eventually, like to me, it's like now we're in a gallery, we're talking, we're looking, we're sharing art. Cause, I'm convinced
Yep.
like when dudes, like guys like to have like the best conversation were guys or when we're doing something we're like shooting baskets or we're snowboarding or we're
Yeah.
like we need to
Yep.
be always like using our hands or being very active. To me, this kind of meets that in the digital world where we're looking at art, we're kind of like our part of our brains are being like stimulated in different ways and the different kinds of art. And while you're talking, I'm also kind of like daydreaming, getting inspired by stuff like this. But this is super cool. Like you guys should be proud that I know
I
I
appreciate
know
it.
it's fun and a labor of love right now, but I could totally see this being just like a fun set. Cause like, right now when I build the set, it's three-dimensional looking, but it's, obviously like a two-dimensional rotating video backdrop. Whereas this actually is, it's more like a first person shooter. It's like a 3D game where we could be like, you know what, let's go into the smoking lounge, shall we? Where I have my
Yeah,
other
yeah.
pictures. Like to me, that's cool. That gives me an idea. You and I should probably talk and figure out a fun way to like maybe I'll get all my stuff together and just like make a cool set that kind of fits for me where I could go into a couple different rooms and just mix the vibe up and and then the people you have on, the artists, like you bring their vibes in and then like there's just so much cool stuff you could do here. And I thought after On Cyber for sure by 2025 we would all be having like literal parties in these places where we all might have our little drink here at the table, but we're kind of hanging out virtually, but it's in an environment that maybe stimulates more conversation and stuff like that. I don't know.
No, I completely agree. It's sort of like, obviously, like I said, we've built it with like $0, but like it's a labor of love, but it's a passion project and it's our hobby and we love it and we work at Gamma, so we've got time to kind of put into that. And, it's super fun to do it with a colleague of
Right.
mine. And yeah, there are things that you've said that are things we would love to do and that we're slowly working on and
Sure.
little ideas and whatnot. So, over time, who knows? But yeah, look, it's great because I love it. It sort of like keeps. Obviously, I like you said, when you love your job, it was actually one of the reasons why I ended up leaving teaching was not because yeah, I just wasn't as in love with it as I used to be. And you have to be in love with what you do to well, look, not everyone's lucky enough to be in love with what they do when they
Right.
work, but I am fortunate that I am, and so I just get to keep exploring and keep doing these sorts of things and work with people and work with artists and then have my little passion project on the side. And it's why like I guess I was fortunate enough a few years ago to get the job at Gamma and sort of like here we are. It's kind of, yeah, it's nice to have that sort of cohesion across like my different areas of interest.
Yeah,
We
no,
got
it's
signals.
super cool. Yeah, like so let's bring it on home and just
Yeah.
like you said, we've talked to Nick about signals and it was the big debut at inscribing, but obviously you guys are cranking, you're working on it. I did get early access, got my bars and am ready to roll. Just
Nice.
give us the update because I know obviously let's be honest, it's probably good that you're waiting a little because I'm guessing once it gets a little cooler, the kids go back off to school, we're going to be more engaged in the fall and certainly in the winter again. So, but tell us like what you're expecting, like when we're going to kind of debut with signals. I saw some teasers with Hardo, which would be super cool. Like what's going on there?
Yeah, well, I don't know what I'm allowed to say and what I'm not allowed to say, but a little bit of alpha is I would expect it very soon. The devs have been, like heads down. That I'm I'm on the operations side of Gamma, so head of growth and working with like the biz dev and all that, so that side, but obviously work closely with our engineers as well. We
Right.
have honestly truly incredible engineers, just like what they've been able to ship, and like the quality. The thing is something with at Gamma is we're not the sort of company that like has a thesis of like build fast and break things. We want to like build well, and if that means slowly, like the new app we built over a whole year to really ship like really high quality stuff. So, hats off to our devs. Just wanted to make a note of that. But yeah, look, Signals is going to be very soon. And I'm really excited. I think it's, something as part of my job, working with artists and deciding on working with them and kind of like analyzing the market and getting market sentiment and kind of like helping them with marketing ideas and, the whole kind of like go to market before they
Right.
drop, which I think we do well. But something like Signals just hasn't existed. I know when you spoke to Nick, you said something like it's I can't remember your phrase. You came up with this great line. It was something like it's a not a something. Wasn't something around a
Oh, it was.
revolution?
I
Anyway,
think it
you,
was
you said
that
something.
because you quote tweeted. I was like, oh, I don't even remember
Yeah,
saying that because
I like that.
I think it was like it's
Can't remember what it
like a
was.
revolution or an evolution. No, it's a revolution, not an
It's not
evolution.
an evolution. It's a correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, great phrase by the way. Hats off. And I think it really is. I think the ability for artists, projects, platform and chain agnostic, can even be Web3 agnostic. You can launch a physical product through it to really have a place to go and find product market fit properly without all the guesswork, without all the, I'm going to use that word, without all the bullshit
Right.
around like repost this and
Right.
like, get on this whitelist, and you never really know whether it's like how legitimate is it all? You never really know. And I think that this is going to really like going to be the data's going to be there. It can't be faked. You're going to know if you've got the demand. You're going to know whether or not you should go to market or not. The you're really like a lot of companies you would know from working in more traditional business. Companies, you don't want to guess. You want to see if you've got product market fit or at
Right.
least some product market fit before investing
Yeah.
in going to in your drop wherever and however that may be. And so Signals, yeah, again, something we spent a long time building. It was so exciting to have Nick, debut the whole idea and the kind of like early access component in Vegas. But
Right.
I think it's been sorely kind of like overlooked really as a product idea in Web3, and then also kind of like outside of Web3 too. So I'm super excited for it to go live. I think there's obviously like naturally I'm a little biased because I work at Gamma and we built it, but
Right.
I personally like if I take my Gamma hat off, I think it's a really unique idea, and it was born from how do we like this was when we also thought like fees were kind of going to stay crazy, and that's like how do we help creators to get onto Bitcoin or to get it started on Bitcoin obviously because it's our main thing at Gamma, but I think we very cleverly have made it platform and chain agnostic, but how are you going to help these people go to market? And I think it's really exciting to have something like Signals coming along. And I really hope it takes off, naturally because I work at Gamma, but also because I think it will help so many people on both the creator side and the collector side. Because how many times as a collector have you seen, we don't even need to name projects, but you've seen like a tweet that's got like a million, not a million, but a
Right.
thousand reposts,
Right.
and you're like, oh, maybe there must be a lot of people that are into this project. I
Right.
should mint, and then it does terribly. Like that data isn't real. So real data, real data is so important and so hard to find, and you don't know how things are being spun in the background. You don't know how many the
Right.
team might have minted. Like they're not. It's not going to be able to be it's going to basically like remove that. And then also for the creator, a creator might have spent a lot of Bitcoin or whatever to inscribe a whole bunch of work and then bring it to market and then it doesn't do well. It might be really quality work, but they might have been able to like reassess how they were going to come to market, but they were sort of guessing. So it's going to take the guesswork out for both sides. And
Right.
I think that's really cool. I'm really excited to see how it goes.
Yeah, I am too. I think to like it's the first platform like because allow lists, whitelists, whatever you call them, like that stuff got old and I don't know, like I'm glad I'm older, I guess, but like and I've got another company to run, but like I don't think I'd want to be a collab manager. Like, and hats off to the guys who do it really well, but that'd be a hard job. You're like, hey, shrooms, hey, ordinal punks, hey, OMBs, like, and you gotta, and you gotta make it seem like it's super exclusive. And, I remember one time I got invited to be, it was one of the OMB mints. I guess I do name names here, and I felt like, and I was like, oh shit. And someone really important gave it to me. And then like 10 other people came, they're like, hey dude, getting in on that. And I realized like, oh, the name of the game is to like, if there's 1,000 openings, you got to make sure 4,000 people feel exclusive because you got to mint out, you know. And right now, obviously, minting out is really hard. And what you do have solved that gap to basically be like with the bars and the kind of like putting your ante down, be like, ooh, I really like this. I really want this. I'm in. And then other people are like, ooh, I'm in. And it creates that kind of network effect to be like, okay, well, now the price of that launch is more. So, hopefully like tying in the pre-demand, like if you can nail pre-demand through mint, like that really is the holy grail. Cause allow lists just, I don't even like, you know, and we've got like in the Bitcoin shrooms, we probably have some of the best, like everyone wants to give us stuff. Cause you know, we were dumb enough to spend a Bitcoin on a Bitcoin shroom, but like, I don't even look at anything anymore. Cause I know whatever I want to buy right now, I could probably buy it at mint, or I'll probably get it like, I'll probably get the one I want like 3 months later for half the price of mint. And there's very few collections, if you look at it, that have actually, like Azuki went way up for a while, for a year or two, right? Bored Apes did it. Pudgy Penguins did it. Actually, when Luca, eventually, like when the new owner came in, he's done a great job, right? But like, keeping that hype and momentum to keep something positively going is hard. The fact that you're addressing that before with artists big and small, like I think is really cool. Cause it also helps you be like, look, you can price it at 0.01, but you're not going to sell any, you know, like, and now you'd be like, okay, the data shows these people are interested. Like they're committed because they actually commit to buying. Is that kind of what the bars do? Or is it the intent to buy?
No, so they'll put down, like you said, an ante. Like let's just say, for example, like the mint price is going to be, that gets decided through the whole process, is going to be $50, just for example. Sure. They'll back the project. Then they'll say they'll want to spend 50. So they back it with 10%. So they back it with $5, and obviously that gets split between Signals and the creator. And so they've put, skin in the game, which means when they go to mint day, if the mint price is going to be 50, they pay 45 on mint day because they've already paid $5 through bars. So you just take that 10% back off. And yeah, so like if you've put skin in the game, if you've already spent some money, you're pretty unlikely to not then go and follow through. And if you don't follow through, you've lost that 10% anyway, So it's really trying to like ensure that they're committed. Because when you're on an allow list, and I've done it, I'm not pretending like I'm an angel. I've been on allow lists that I 100%. Then don't turn up to.
Yeah, because you get, as time gets closer, you're like, you know what? This doesn't feel, because like guys like you and I, like once I smell like hype or bullshit or kind of, I don't want to say unethical. I don't even know. Yeah, it is unethical. Like
say it if you want. Like we can define it in
promote things, right? And that you're like, you know what? I'm out. And because sometimes we get caught up in the whole FOMO hype, and then we sleep on it. We're like, I don't need this thing. I don't like, do I need this another PFP on my wall? No, I don't. I put the art on my wall, not the PFP, but this is cool. And I can't wait to see it roll out. And, obviously you and Nick are welcome on the show as you roll this out. And, we could talk about it, look at it. And the beauty is, like I said, like it's to me, audio spaces are fine, but I always laugh because audio spaces in art are just comical. That's why I was like, Steven, video. And now he's killing it with video, because you want to show, you got to see it. You got to see everything that's going on. You know what I mean? Like, and you got to see the art, and you got to experience it. And that's the best way to do it. So, Brett, it was great having you on the show. It was super fun to just, like I told you, we go everywhere. I did not lie. But you did not disappoint. You're like me and just like talk about life and anything. Maybe I need to give someone a virtual cigar every time we just sit down and sit by the fire and just kind of wax philosophical. But it was great having you on the show, and let's do this again like soon.
Yeah, man. Big thanks for having me on. Like you said, Blue, I think you and I are cut from the same cloth when it comes to be able to just chat away and talk about anything, and, get onto sort of like somewhat related tangents and whatnot. I had a lot of fun, and I would love to come back. And yeah, Nick and I would love to come back as well. And like you said, I think that this video content and podcasts and whatnot, it's so important because like you and I, we speak with each other, or when we interview artists and whatnot, there are real people behind these PFPs. Both our PFPs are artistic versions of ourselves, as you can see on the screen. But there are the humans behind this, the real narrative, the stories, like the people that create the art. That is that adds, and that's so important. It's not just about the beautiful picture. Maybe it is for some people, but for me, when I collect, if I've learned something about the artist, or if I know some of the story, or there's some other reason, that's compelling stuff. So keep up the good work. I love what you do.
I appreciate you, Brett. All right, everybody, take care. Until next time, this is the Blue Node Lounge with Brett Herskope with Gamma Product Growth. So have a great night, everyone.
Peace.